the only vision I have for my business is that it's much more, it's not about cacao. And that's why I called it Eight Within. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
sitting down with the designer to start doing my packaging. He's like, Eight Within. It doesn't say anything about cacao. And I was like, it's not a cacao business. For me, I called it a soul development business. And I was like, right now, cacao is the vessel that I'm using to reach people. It's so I called it Eight Within because I'm talking about the eight stands for infinity. So infinite wisdom within you.
Welcome back to Perspective Switch, where we talk about spirituality and self-development. I am Lonnie, and today's guest is Lauretta. I discovered her on TikTok, and she's driven by her passion for cacao and is launching her own business in a few months. You can find her at 8 Within, the number 8, WITHIN, on TikTok, creating fun and engaging content. You'll get to see her exploring this whole new journey with cacao that I'm so excited to talk about and get into today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
What was your first experience like with ceremonial cacao?
Underwhelming.
Really?
Yeah, it's funny. I've come full circle. So I've done a lot in my life, I've had a lot of careers. And one of those, I was trained to be a yoga. First, I started training Kundalini yoga and started teaching it, and then I went into kind of more traditional yoga, Yin yoga, etc. So I was in Bali doing my teacher training, and as part of it, of course, we had a cacao ceremony and ecstatic dance, and I was so excited. And then I had it, and nothing happened. Very underwhelming. And then a few weeks later, I had another one. And again, it was nice. We had like a fireside ceremony, but again, nothing happened. It was only more recently that I actually went over to Costa Rica and I had like proper cacao made from the
Mm.
beans. Like we had the beans, we roasted the beans, we ground them ourselves. And that's when I had this really euphoric, almost kind of psychedelic type experience from the cacao where everything was just more exaggerated. Like I could like hear the birds like singing in surround sound and like colors were so bright and
Wow.
I was just like in love with everybody. And that's what I was like, okay, so when you have the good stuff, life is good. So yeah.
Wow. So was Costa Rica the start of when you were just when you realized how much you loved cacao?
Yeah. So when I was in Costa Rica, I was starting a chocolate business. I've always had a problem with chocolate.
Oh,
So yeah, it was just chocolate, but it was chocolate for the sheer enjoyment and the indulgence, and that's what I was
yeah.
really looking at. But then when I kind of got brought back to the cacao thing, I kind of said at the end of the day, the power, because I was studying herbalism. That's actually why I went to Costa Rica. I was on herbalism training. I was like, the power of this is it's in the bean. It's not in all the stuff we put in it to make it
Mm.
chocolate. It's not the sugar. It's not the additives. It's the bean. And if you like celebrate that on its own, and that's that I pivoted completely, literally business plan out of the window and just redid things and said, I'm just going to focus on giving people good stuff, not the, other stuff.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Have you always felt like you've been an entrepreneur your whole life? Or
I
you've had
have
that spirit?
I have been up and down a lot. I've done a lot. So I'm actually a doctor. That's where I actually started. So started life as a doctor, left that career about a decade ago now. And because I wanted to do other things, I feel like I'm very creative. And I just felt like there wasn't space for that. So
Mm.
I went into journalism, then I went into TV production, then I became a nutritionist, then I went into health tech sector and started working in health apps. I've all over the place, and then I've dabbled in entrepreneurship along the way. But I'm a Sagittarius. I'm very like in it, and I'm all or nothing. So I've always been like, I want to do something that I'm super passionate about because I know if I am, like, basically watch out. Like, I will just destroy it. It'll be amazing. But I try to do stuff I'm lukewarm about, and I can't keep the momentum because I just don't care. 6 months goes by, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't care about this. So, this is probably me doing entrepreneurship properly, like with a passion and purpose as well as obviously making money.
I have Perspective Switch and it's mainly a podcast and I feel so passionate about it and I feel like I like no matter how tired I get, like I can keep working. I actually have to put myself to sleep at night. But I before this, my passion was shuffle dancing and I would get really burnt out because I never felt like I was good enough, and I was like forcing myself to get better and trying to be like do more and more and more. But like every time I got burnt out, I would have to take a break from it. And I've been going hard for a year now on this podcast, and I just don't feel the same way. So I feel like it's so valuable to have that passion behind what you're doing, or else you are going to get burnt out.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just talking to someone actually before I came on, someone who needed some career advice
Yeah.
before I jumped on this call. And I was talking about the difference between when you're doing stuff and you're pushing versus when
Mhm.
you're kind of like on track and you're on your path and it feels like it's just happening and is being done kind of
Yeah.
through you. And you're this vessel that's, it's stuff is just happening. And you're kind of like, okay, that's why when I said I have to move the date of my launch, it's like, okay, well, that's what's happening now. And just get with it. So yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, and it feels like there's this energy and this force like in me, like not pushing me, like guiding me, almost pushing me. And like it just like feels like this energy that I've never had before, and I can't even explain it.
Yeah.
I just don't even
I
know.
I know what you mean. It's very, yeah. It's like life is strange. I always say that the way things turn out. Like if you just look back and you're
Mhm.
like, is this where I thought I was going to end up?
Yeah.
No, but does it feel good? Yeah. So
I love that you've jumped around so much because it really shows that you care about what you're doing and you care about doing the thing that lights you up. Did you ever struggle with like wanting to just have one thing and have it figured out and not be jumping around?
yeah, absolutely. So I said to you that this was my first bash at entrepreneurship. It's not. I had a company a couple of years ago and it was a career development platform because I had jumped careers so many times and quite publicly that when I got into something and I loved it, I was like, oh my God, I've done it. And I started this little blog and all these people appeared and they're like, oh, we want to know. And it turned into this big company where I was running events and I was doing coaching because everyone was kind of like,
Wow.
show me your ways,
Yeah.
show me how to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. So I feel like I've lost track of your question. Remind
Like
me of the original question before I go off on a tangent.
it was about jumping to so many different careers and ever feeling like you wish you just had it figured out.
That's where we were. So when I started this company, I thought I'd had it figured out, and so I was focusing just on this one thing, and it was helping other people develop their careers and figure out what they wanted to do. And within 18 months, I got itchy feet. I didn't want to be doing one thing anymore. I The same old stuff came up for me again, where I was like, I don't think I'm made to do just one thing. I really don't. I think some people are, and some people are just meant to. Like I always call myself a seeker. I'm always like either physically traveling or like emotionally. Like I'm always moving from one thing to another, and I think that's me. And I felt bad about it earlier in life because people say pick a career and stick to it. But you know,
Yeah.
you my mum used to say to me, "You never finish anything." She said it one day really
Oh
snidely
no.
about, and it always stuck with me because I was like, "She's right, I
Oh.
finished nothing." But now I'm like, "Well, that's me. Like that's my personality. I'm seeking out new stuff, and it's not just me. There are loads of us like this, but I think we are made to feel like there's something wrong. But it's really
Yeah.
nice when you just kind of own it and celebrate it, and you're looking for the next challenge, and that's fine.
Yeah, we are. I feel like we're made to like have the one thing and do it forever and get really good at it. And if you do anything other than that, like you're not good enough.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's a lot of kind of self work, I think, as well, because I've always had a chip on my shoulder. I think about not being an expert in something. You know, if you stick at something long
Mhm.
enough, you become an expert, and if you just keep jumping like me, you don't. So I've
Yeah.
always been like, what's my expertise? And that's why I started that career change platform because I was like, my expertise is changing careers a lot, so that's what I'm good at. Um, but yeah, like we live in new times and different times, and it's just like embracing that a little bit.
And I think it's so valuable. Like, I love the conversation we're having right now because when I was younger and I just graduated college, I got my I got a degree in accounting, and I remember having this really heavy feeling of like, oh my God, this is the rest of my life. But really, we get to change what we want to do all the time. Like if we don't feel passionate about what we're doing, we can change it, and that's okay.
Yeah,
So this part's for those younger people out there who like don't know what they want to do in life and feel like they need to have it figured out. It's like you don't. You're
yeah.
fine.
And also, if you think think you had it figured out and you change your mind. Like when I left medicine, I thought it was a disaster. I tried to leave so many times and it just felt like I couldn't do it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like loads of, and I remember being told when I finally quit by my boss, loads of people want to do this and you're throwing this away, you know, how terrible and selfish you are.
Yeah.
But you can leave, you're never too in, like too deep in. If you know it's not for you, then absolutely. And I was always like, I would want a doctor who's paying attention and in it 100%. I wouldn't want me as my doctor who's kind of like, I don't want to be here. That's not who you want to put your health in the hands of.
No.
So, yeah.
When was your first spiritual awakening?
Ooh, first spirit. I don't know if I've had a spiritual awakening. I feel like life is a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
But I will say a big moment for me, how long ago was it now? 2018? I know because I went to a Reiki person, energy healer, Reiki. I don't really know what she did. I was seeing, let's call her a life coach slash therapist because I was like, oh, what do I do with my life? And she said to me, I know this French woman. Go to like this little part of London, and it was all very shady and weird. And I was like, okay, I was like, what does she do for you? She's like, don't worry, just because I went to this woman and lay down, had the session. She moved all the stuff around me. I left, all was good. And then the next day, it was like I crashed and I was just like in like a black hole of despair. I remember sitting, I was driving and I was sitting at the traffic lights and it was like a crossroad. And I remember sitting there and everyone was just sitting at the traffic light, not moving, which is normal because it was a red light. But I was like, why are we so compliant? I could just put my foot on the gas right now and just like, for some reason, I was like, this world just sucks. And they're making us just be puppets. I literally just had this whole thing where I was just really angry and I just wanted to screw the rules and do what I want to do. So this went on. I was just like, this is a facade. I'm in the matrix. It went on for a while. I had to call the healer woman and say, what have you done to my brain? Because I wasn't great when I saw you, but I wasn't like cynical. And now I'm this huge cynic and I'm just like, ugh. Anyway, so that started this whole thing. That was the first time I went to Bali because I was like, screw this, I'm out of here. And I literally just got on the plane, packed my bags and just left indefinitely. And it took a
Wow.
good 3.5 months to the day and then it lifted. Literally, I woke up and I was like, la, 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 and everything was just great. And it was such a shift. But she said, oh, you're having a healing crisis. And she said, it'll work its way out of your system when it works. And that's how it felt. Like it literally, like it happened like that. And then it disappeared like that. And then I was suddenly like, oh, I feel good. The sun is shining. Oh, I'm ready to go home now. It was so bizarre because that was the first time that I really felt a shift. But I would say generally growing up, I'm someone who has felt like there's more. Like I've
Yeah.
always felt like this isn't it. And it's what I said about a facade. Like, I don't think they're telling us the full story here. I've just always felt a little bit like that. So I very much tried to kind of like find my bliss. And I did that through careers initially. And then I did that through traveling. And I did that through, I was raised Catholic, but I've like dove into, Buddhism. I've jumped into a lot. I haven't become a new religion, but I've gone fully into it. I told you I'm training Kundalini yoga because I was like, oh, I want to know more about, my energy bodies and my chakras and my Kundalini energy. And so I've just done it's one thing after another after another. And they've been great. They've been weird and wonderful experiences.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's ongoing. I think I've shifted to one level and then something else happens. And I'm like, even yesterday I was doing a meditation and I was having like a really surreal experience and I was just like, oh, I thought it was like a chakra one. I thought I'd work through this. And I got to my heart chakra and literally my whole body was like shaking and moving. I was like, what the hell is this? Like I thought I'd cleared all this stuff. So yeah, it just goes on.
Yeah. Yeah, the thinking, so like I've had thoughts of like, oh, I thought like I handled this. I thought I healed this. I thought I dealt with this. And like as I grow older, I just realize it's kind of like I peel back the layers and then things will kind of come up again. But like now I'm just like, okay, like I'm just aware of this. Like I hear you, like I hear my common thoughts that like say the same thing all the time. So I'm just
Yeah.
like, in a way, just being okay with it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's an experience. Let's put it that way.
Which country's cacao do you enjoy the most?
Ooh, good question because they're all so different. So in terms of, I know it's a very serious question. In terms of activating and having like the most enlightening, awakening kind of experience, I still say Costa Rica is the best one I've had to date. But in terms of a kind of like a grounding and feeling really in your body experience, Peruvian. And that's why the cacao that I use for Eight Within is from Peru for that specific
Okay.
reason. Like a big thing for me is I started Eight Within because I feel like people today are very kind of disconnected. There's a lot of
Yeah.
mental health issues. Like we don't have a really good way of coping with stuff. And I think that's because we're just disconnected from ourselves and from each other. So it's really important for me to have cacao that makes you feel more connected to you,
Mm.
to the world, and then to others around you. And so for me, the Peruvian stuff does that the best. And when I say stuff, you've got lots of different beans. I use criollo, which is like the king of cacao. But Ecuadorian cacao is also really activating as well. There's so many, and again, it depends like when you get them, what region you get them from, the type of bean, like the strain. There's so many aspects to it. It's yeah, it's crazy. I would encourage anyone if they ever have time on their hands to do some sampling. Like it's just amazing how like something, just a small bean, can make you feel so different depending on where it's grown.
So it sounds like cacao is grown in tropical areas.
Yeah, so it's really, I mean, you get it in like, I mean, it originates, I don't say originates, but like the OG of cacao is actually Africa, but a lot of it is used for cocoa commercially, and we won't get into the whole cocoa trade. It's not very good, safe,
Yeah.
ethical, etc. And then when it comes to ceremonial cacao, so using cacao for as a plant medicine and more spiritually, that
Hmm.
originates from Mayan and Aztec tradition. So that's more Central and South American. So a question I've been asked is, I'm African, I'm Nigerian. Why I'm not using like cacao from Africa? And I'm like, well, because I'm using it as a plant medicine, I'm having to use like to make for cacao to be ceremonial. You didn't ask, but I'm going to say it anyway. For cacao to be ceremonial, it's really important. The intention with which it was grown is really important, as well as the land and the sustainability and the ethical practices. So
Yeah.
it's important for me to use like a Central or South American cacao as opposed to one from Africa, just because that the tradition isn't quite there.
And maybe one day you'll be able to bring that to Africa.
Well, because we have our own traditions, like as much as everyone at the moment, especially when you look in spiritual kind of walks of life, especially plant medicine, for example.
Yeah.
Central and South America is so big, but you've got shamans everywhere. You've got African shamans, you've got
Hmm.
native doctors. So there's lots of stuff that we do and how we use cacao and how we use different plants. um, for me, it's almost like tiers of education, like where do you start? And because there's already this foundation with ceremonial cacao and kind of the Mayan culture, that's why it's like I've got so many battles to fight with this, like trying to make
Yeah.
something niche mainstream. Do I now want
Yeah.
to try and educate people? And like, no, so we'll just start. But absolutely, that's my, yeah, that's my goal slash dream, is whatever I'm doing is to connect it to my culture and my roots, because that's where I can speak from. Like, I'm not Mayan. You know what I mean? I don't know that much about that tradition.
Like thinking about talking about chocolate and how unethical the practices are, but it feels like any big I want to say any big corporation's pretty unethical, but there's a lot of unethical stuff happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, where do you start with that? Like, 1,000,000%. Even I say this a lot because I told you I was a nutritionist. I say this to a lot to people who, it's more about chocolate. When like people say to me, "Why is chocolate so addictive?" And I'm like, it's a combination of sugar and fat. And I can't remember who said this. Is not me. I got it from someone else, but I can't remember who. But someone said that there's nowhere else in nature that you will find that combination together of sugar and fat. It just, if you think of every natural food, it doesn't exist. And that combination has been put together. And now it exists in so many foods we eat. When I say sugar, I mean like simple carbohydrates. So
Mhm.
pizzas and cakes, and it's all of it. And it's almost like it's intentionally being done to make us eat more, buy more, be sicker, get more medical. Like there's this vicious circle. So it's, yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like it runs all the way through society, that everything is shady, basically. And things start with the purest of intentions, but I think a lot of the time, as it grows, those intentions get forgotten, sidetracked, money talks, big corporation competition, and yeah.
I completely agree with you. I'm happy that you just said that, like those intentions get sidetracked because there can be so much like negativity and hate spewed at like these things that are so far outside of ourselves. But like I think genuinely these people like it's not as far removed as like what we can potentially feel within ourselves of like when sometimes we get greedy or sometimes we get really mad or angry at people. It's just there's these like people who are higher up who maybe are just constantly living in that like state of fear. I really think that the higher up people are just in fear,
Yeah.
scarcity, lack, like I need to keep my millions of dollars
Yeah.
or
No,
what.
absolutely. And that's something I'm doing more and more these days, whereby, you know, when stuff happens to you or a friend and they say, oh my God, this person's trying to scam me and this. And I'm always like,
Yeah,
people on, very few people are sitting there trying to be bad. It's just everything usually starts with a justifiable intention. And then stuff happens, things spiral, you're around the wrong people. As I said, things get bigger. You've got loads of yes men in your ear. Just, do you know what I mean? And you're feeling desperate. It's what
yeah,
you said about fear. And suddenly it's just a hot mess,
yeah.
essentially. But I like to think that people inherently are good, like all of us. Like we're trying our best.
I also want to say one more thing with that
Yeah,
is how it's so important for us, you and me, and the people listening. Like the individual person is the most important thing for making the change. Like we matter so much, and that's all we can really do. We can't control anyone else. We just need to make sure that we're living in integrity with everything that we do. And like for me, I'm like constantly checking in and I like keep a meditation practice and I'm always thinking and analyzing and making sure that I'm living from my heart. Like no matter how scared I am, I'm like, is this coming from my heart? Because if it is, I'll do it, even though I'm terrified right now.
yeah, that's super important. And I don't think many of us do that at all. Like you
Yeah.
get dragged along. I feel like that's
Yeah.
an appropriate word. At least for me, I felt that a lot. Like just dragged, like there's a current and it's other people's expectations or at least your perception of what their expectations are. And so we're just scrambling, like just scrambling on autopilot and not thinking. And yeah, and it's important to be able to just step back, check in with yourself and like, what do I want? What feels good to me, etc. And yeah, if we're all doing that, then you're right, the world would be a vastly different place if literally
Mhm.
we're all, acting from our own intuition.
I love what you just said about the expectation of, no, the perception of the expectation of other people, because I feel like I do that so much. Like one thing I just realized is I've had this channel for a year now and I hadn't told my coworkers about it because I was scared of what they were going to think and I felt like I was just scared. So I didn't tell anyone. And then I just told them a couple weeks ago and I felt so free. And then I realized how like they didn't tell me that I couldn't talk about it. They didn't no one's like you can't talk about your spirituality, you can't do this or that. Like I put that limitation and that restriction on myself. Like I felt like I couldn't do it. And then once I did do it, it was scary, but then I realized how free I felt and I realized that I was putting the limitation on myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's life, isn't it? Like the amount of
Yeah.
stuff we make up in our heads and
Yeah.
it's not real. It's literally it's not happening. And even I can't remember who said this again. I keep quoting other people, but just because you think it doesn't make it real. But I think we buy into our
Mm,
thoughts so much and they're so
yeah.
loud and they're with you all day. You just stop
Me too.
believing them.
Uh, and then another thing I've been thinking about recently is like I forget my most recent thoughts, but I was living from them. Oh man, I wish I could remember an example because so like if we have a fearful thought and then we do something out of that fear, we're reinforcing it as true. And oh, I think like I've been procrastinating a lot and like it's just the I think it's my least favorite state of being is like procrastination. And I realized that the more I procrastinate, the more I'm giving into that belief that like I can't do this or I don't want to do this or I don't like doing this. And it just makes it stronger and stronger and stronger each time I let it control me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that it's like neural pathways. I'm trying to
I
scratch up all my old
know.
medical knowledge, but it's true. And it's like you're either making it stronger or weaker with each. And I do that. There's certain things that I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with that I now have to actively say, you are not doing that. And this is a positive. Every time you say no, you're moving like one goal closer to where you want to be. And every time you say yes, you're moving one away. Like which, but I literally have to have that dialogue in my head where it's like, which direction do you want to go in? Some days I'm like, I don't care. I want to go in the bad direction today. Sorry. But it's that active, yeah, it's an active choice. But absolutely, yeah, you're either strengthening or you're weakening the pathways. I don't know, I
Yeah,
find the brain fascinating.
that is what recently I've been like accepting that I created these neural pathways and like I've like dug myself down this hole of like where I don't want to be. And even like accepting that, I'm just like, well, like, what do I do about it? I guess I just have to push through for the time being and try to go the other way, which
Yeah.
momentum.
There's this book, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called The Chimp Paradox. It's by an English guy, Stephen something, I don't remember. I will have to let you know. But it's so brilliant because it talks about how there's you, like you, and then it talks about like your God, I'm completely ruining it. It talks about you having a chimp, and your chimp's like the what is the word I'm looking for? Like the very basic, simple part of your brain that's just after meets getting its desires met. And so, like when you're procrastinating, it's like it's your chimp that's taking over, and it's telling you, "Oh, do this is going to be easier if you go watch Netflix, or you go eat a
Uh,
pizza and stuff, do what you want to do," and you have to like remember that you're the person. You have to rein your chimp in and be like, no, chimp, not today. You literally have to like take control of your brain so it doesn't hijack and ruin things for you.
yeah.
But it's a super interesting book because it just changes the way you think because you stop feeling so out of control. Oh my God, I'm doing this again. It's like, it's not me. It's my primal brain. It's fine. It's trying to protect me. It's okay. I'm not in the jungle. Like nothing's going to attack me. And you just take control. Yeah, I find it interesting when I remember to do it, that is.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a point yesterday where I was becoming more aware, and instead of just like impulsively acting, like I'll be like trying to work and then it's like go to the bathroom and I'll just like immediately get up and go to the bathroom. It's like I'm trying to work, I'm like I need to go get food. And it's like just like this, I don't give myself like that presence or that slowness to just listen and be like you're like this thing is doing it again, where it's like telling me to go do something else. That's like that's
Yeah.
reinforcing the procrastination. So I love this book that you're talking about. That makes sense. How does spirituality show up in your daily life?
Ooh. Um, all over the place. It's funny. So, synchronicities for me are huge. They happen all the time to the extent that I literally just laugh, but it's nice because it always reminds me that I'm on track. It's the smallest thing. I could be thinking of a random, like the best example I've got is me being on Instagram, seeing something about Armenia on Instagram, being like, what is this about Armenia? And then someone calls me, I answer the phone and say, hi, it's Armenia. And the woman's name was, and I'm like, who is called Armenia? And why are you calling me? It was like, just like random stuff like that happening. And I'm laughing. And she's like, why are you laughing? It's like, no reason. Stuff like that happens all the time. And obviously, I don't take it literally like I'm supposed to move to Armenia, but it's just like I think of it as like a little nod from the universe that all is well, you're on the right track. It happens for me a lot. And another big one for me is worrying about something, trying to force it, and then the minute I take my hands off it, it just happens. So many times it just happens. I will literally say,
Wow.
"Oh my God, like my packaging's a hot mess and I really need a designer who's going to really help me, but I'm not, my finances aren't great. Gosh, I really, okay, I'll whine about it and then I'll say, do you know what? I don't care anymore. Like the packaging I've got is the packaging I've got. Within 24 hours, a random designer will be like, hi, I'm trying to build my portfolio. I'd love to do some work for you for free. And I'm just like, okay, it's happened again. Come on it. Like that's the kind of stuff that just happens all the time.
I
And I love
love
it.
it. Yeah.
And it really shows me when I have kind of surrendered because when I haven't, the stuff doesn't happen. The stuff I'm like, I don't care about and I'm pretending clearly doesn't work out. I'm like, you still care. That's why it's not happening. The minute I legitimately go, but you know what? It is what it is. Let it happen. It just happens. And yeah, but again, that's just for me like proof that there's something bigger going on. Um, and for me, it keeps me on the right path because again, when I've been in places I don't need to be in, I've also had the opposite where everything just goes really bad. and just falls apart, like trying to tell me get out. And if I don't listen, it just gets worse and worse and worse in a very catastrophic, hysterical way that I have to be like, do you know what? You can't. So a good example, I don't know if I want to air my dirty laundry. I had a job in Bali at the end of last year at a retreat center. I was going over there, I was going to teach meditation. If I'm really honest with myself, hand on heart, I didn't really want to go, but I'd gotten myself so far into it, and I was doing it from a place of self doubt where I wanted to go work for someone else instead of start my own business because I was doubting myself. And I
Mm.
pushed and pushed, and there were obstacles with getting a visa and getting a work permit, but I pushed my way through, and everything was good to go. And the day before I was meant to leave, the company called me and told me they'd been flooded, and the center was shut down, and there was no work for me. And
Wow.
I was literally, my bags were packed, visa gone, work permit gone. I'd moved out of my flat. I'd taken all my stuff to my parents, literally. But that was like the universe being like, she does not listen. She's trying to make herself go and teach meditation when we don't want her to. So it was like shutting it down. And now, like when it happened, I was just like lost because I'd made all this, like I had nowhere to live. I was just like, what is this? But now I'm like, that's the best thing that happened because it put me on a completely much more authentic path. Like I would not have been happy teaching it. Like I love doing meditation. Do I want to teach others? Not necessarily. So it's just interesting that it's, I know if I don't listen, like the universe is like, right, we've got to stop this crazy person who just doesn't pay attention. So
Yeah.
yeah, to answer your question, I think it shows up a lot if you're paying attention, because again a lot of things happen to me, I say to someone else, someone send a call on the butt, it's just a coincidence. Like
Oh
lots of people are called Armenia, lots of
no.
designers are looking for work, especially just when you need one. Retreat centers get flooded, they always, and I'm like, well, you want to see things badly, you always want to see things that way. I always want to see things positively, and like there's a greater power guiding me, so that's how I see it.
I'm so happy that you shared both when things are going well and you're in alignment, and then also when like you're not in alignment and you're forcing. Because right now in life, I've really been asking this question of like will the universe just always support me and always be there and like always kind of show up, like so the number that I see all the time is 27, and I will see this number whether I'm like super happy or whether I'm going through like a shadow experience, and I'm just like, does it matter what I do in life? Which it doesn't feel good like pondering this and thinking this of like, does it really matter? But then like ultimately I do, like I can like feel what I really want to do. Like I can feel that like this podcast excites me and I get to meet people and I get to travel. Like that is so exciting versus like doing something else that I don't necessarily want to do and how like it doesn't feel good. And then I question like, well, did I just create those neural pathways to like not letting this other thing feel good?
Yeah, I always think you end up where you're meant to be. And I think you go through all of the stuff to get there because it makes it sweeter when you get there. But I do. I don't know if you've read the book Paths to God by Ram Dass. You should.
No.
It's my favorite book ever, ever, ever. In it, he talks about some. I've said this to other people, and they've gotten really angry with me because they're like, I don't subscribe to that way of viewing life. But he says that like life is a playback, that your life has already happened, and what you're experiencing now, you are literally watching it unfold because it's done. This is literally a playback of what's, so you can't get it wrong. And it's like a rom-com where, the couple meet and then like someone thinks someone's cheating on another person and it's all like heartbreak and then it's all fine in the end. It's kind of like that. You'll just go through all of the dramas to end up where you need to be. So you can't get it wrong, which I love because now I'm like, maybe I go to Bali and teach meditation. Maybe I start a cacao business. Maybe I raise donkeys tomorrow. Who knows? Who cares? Like it'll all just work, and the universe will pull me back in if I'm getting out of control, and it'll push me if I'm like terrified to do something.
Wow. Yeah, thank you. Have you ever wanted to raise donkeys?
No, I'm just thinking of something ridiculous I could do tomorrow, and my family would be like, "What now? Like it's always something else with you."
What's your favorite country that you went to?
Ooh, favorite country. It's so varied for different reasons. So I was in Kona in Hawaii this time last year, and I loved it in terms of the mix. It sounds awful because when you go to like far-flung countries, you've got a language barrier and you've got the food is great, and then you after a few months you're like, no, I just want the food that I know. Like there's all this stuff, and then like Kona, you have the weather, you have culture, and you have the spirituality, but it's part of the US technically, so you
Yeah.
still have like some like home familiar comfort. So I love the mix of the two, but I love the energy of actually just being on Kona. Like I don't know if you've been anytime.
No.
It's just energetic. Some places you land and you're just like, ooh, like something's going on there. It's just
Yeah.
energetic. Maybe it's all the volcanoes. It has a lot of history, but yeah, the vibe was brilliant there. So I'm so eager to go back sometime soon. Balinese, I love them culturally because they're so humble, like actual Balinese, not the Westerners who've taken over Bali. No shade meant, but they're so humble and so nice and like smiling about nothing. They just make you kind of count your blessings when someone's just. I always give an example. I'm sorry to keep going on a tangent. I will focus. Not lost 2 times ago when I've been to Bali a lot. 2 times ago when I was in, I went like to this temple somewhere to do something for 2 hours. This guy scooted me on the back of his scooter because I'm terrified to scoot myself anywhere, so I get rides. Dropped me off and he was like, I'll come back and get you in 2.5 hours, finish your session. I came out about 20 minutes early. He was sitting on the floor. This guy had been sat on the floor in the baking heat waiting for me. And the amount of money that he wanted from me was the equivalent of £5. He drove me an hour out of his way, waited
Wow.
for 2.5 hours, and drove me an hour back. And he wanted £5. And he was smiling and he was humble. And it was just normal. I was like, I need to pay you more. And I was giving him all this money and he didn't want it. In
Oh, wow.
London, for £5, I would be driven like 2 meters down the road and they'd be like, out, and they'd be like
Yeah.
pissed off about everything. I was just like, the cultural difference is just staggering. He was just not, it's almost like they haven't been spoiled by all of our like Western nonsense yet, that makes us all entitled and irritable. And it's just, that's what I love about like the actual Balinese. They're just good people.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
any way to describe it. India's beautiful. I've been to Rishikesh, which is like the meditation center, and I've also been to Dehradun, which is nearer to Nepal. And again, it's by the Himalayas, and it's just, you shouldn't have asked me about places I love going to because now I won't shut up.
Wait,
Again,
did you travel to India alone?
yeah. Everywhere
Oh,
I've been, I've done it alone because I literally wake up
okay.
one day and I say, I just need to not be here.
Mm.
And at my age, it's hard to be like, okay, friends, who's like, no. So I literally just go. And it's just nice because you push yourself. You have to speak to people. You have to speak the language. You just learn and you have new experiences when you just go on your. I mean, my parents always like, please don't die. Like, stop doing these things. But yeah, it's always been alone.
I actually, the first time I traveled alone, I went to Thailand and I think I was 22 years old. And so, like, I had an accounting job for 2 years. I got super burnout. I was crying every day and I was taking yoga a lot at the time. So I got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I quit my job, signed up for this yoga teacher training in Thailand. And then, like, a week before I left, is when I told everyone because I knew that there would be pushback.
Yeah.
So when I told my dad, he was like, please do not go. You're going to die. And, and I was like, I'm sorry that you really truly feel that, but like I have to do this thing. Like
Yeah.
there's no way I can't not go. And I feel like it's so valuable that when we have this burning desire to do something, we need to do it. Because if
Yeah.
we just listen to other people tell us not to do it, we're gonna get resentful.
Yeah.
And so like I didn't really think about that then, but like I'm like thinking about it now, how I'm so grateful for all of these courageous things that I did while I was younger because like it just like builds. But I love traveling alone also. I love staying in hostels and getting to meet people and just experiencing and doing what I feel like doing in the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
But
awesome.
I was thinking about India, but I was like, I don't know if I want to go there alone.
Depends where about. I've been really like ballsy about it because I didn't like go to Mumbai or Delhi or anything. I went to, Rishikesh is like it's full on, but it's very spiritual.
Okay.
So like people go there for again yoga. I didn't go for yoga teacher training, but they do their yoga teacher training, meditations. They have a lot of like rituals by the Ganges. It's just respectful, I guess. So I was there, then I was in Dehradun, which is super. It's like the suburbs, but it's where the Buddha. I was like that guy, Buddha. The Buddha had like one of his awakenings and did all his Bodhi tree stuff that I could buy in Nepal, where he's from. So again, I wasn't even into Buddhism at the time. Again, I was running away from God knows what, and I was like, get me out of here. Where are we going? India. So yeah, so that's why I think I had a easier time versus someone who would just go to Delhi on their own and be like, what the hell is happening right now? And like, yeah, that would be full on, definitely.
Where else have you traveled?
Oh gosh, I have been to Thailand, been to Bangkok, um, Europe, obviously, because it's close to me. So Spain, Italy, Germany, Austria is interesting. I say Austria is the most interesting European place I've been to. Is that a fair statement? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think there's maybe obviously the States. Where else have I been? Don't know. I forget. Obviously Nigeria. Yeah, there's a lot more that I want to do, like more places and obviously Costa Rica. Um, yeah, there's a lot more traveling I want to do, but
Yeah.
for now, I lie. I'm going to Italy next week, but after that, I'm staying put and launching this business and making some cash.
What's been something that's been really fulfilling as the business has been unraveling?
I would say letting it unravel, but also when you make something. I don't know, have you had a product before, product based business?
No, I
So for
haven't.
ages, I tinkered in my kitchen. I gave it to my family. I didn't want anyone I knew to actually taste it because it's like, what if they hate it? So it's that
Yeah.
moment when I gave it to people and they were actually really positive about it. But then they ordered. Like one day I woke up, my website isn't even live yet. And someone had like found the checkout and bought the stuff. And I was like, they
Oh,
really like it. It was so pathetic, but I was like, they actually
oh,
like it. Like it was just small things like that that you get really nice feedback and they get it. When someone, messaged me the other and they said, oh my God, like I had the best uplift to my day. Like this stuff is so rich. And I didn't say the words to them. They said it to me. Like it really made me feel like connected. And I was just like, okay, they get it. This is good. That has been, because that was my aim. And I'm always worried that people are just going to want to sling it back like a cup of coffee. So it's nice
mhm.
when people get the spiritual element to it and actually feel good spiritually.
Yeah, that is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's been
Have you
nice.
find that have you found that you've been making connections through TikTok?
Less TikTok, more Instagram because I'm on both.
Oh,
And this
nice.
is how what I notice about the two. I would say Instagram feels deeper. Like people DM
Yeah.
me more and they get involved in stuff. Like I had, for example, I put out two exact same things. One was I couldn't find an ingredient I need for one of my blends, and I was just like, "Can someone help me, please?" And like Instagram like rallied, and we're literally like, "Here's an address, here's a
Oh,
phone number." Literally, like they
wow.
hustled to help me find this ingredient. Whereas
Yeah.
TikTok were like, "Good luck." so, so
Yeah,
it's just
TikTok is just
interesting.
like TikTok, like I get like 200 views typically and then like 30 to like 60 likes. And
Yeah,
I'm just like, are these real people?
people.
Like no one, like some people comment and I'm like, okay, there are real people on here.
Yeah, I think it's the speed with which it moves. That's I'm so new to TikTok. Like I
Oh,
started this account a month and a half ago. Before that, I knew nothing about it. I
yeah.
was just like, all right, apparently that's where I'm meant to be. Let's get to it. So I can see the difference. Instagram, it's just people are more like they're more invested, and people who bought stuff already, like pre-launch stuff, it's come from Instagram. Whereas TikTok is just like, man, it's just fast, and so they're like, yeah, cool, next, pretty, meh, and they don't care. So I
Yeah.
think it just takes a lot longer to really build that kind of connection. So obviously meeting you through there as a real person who actually wants to do something beyond just say, yeah, I like that and move on. I'm like, oh, wow, novelty. But
Yeah.
give it time. It's been a month and a half. Let's see what happens.
If someone has never tried cacao before but is interested, where do you suggest they start?
Ooh, okay. So this is the analogy I give to everyone. I say cacao and coffee. So think about an espresso, not an espresso. I'm not trying to plug any brands. Like an espresso is really like dark and bitter and it's an acquired taste, unless again you're just like, give me a shot because I need to wake up. Versus like a frappuccino at Starbucks and it's all sugar and it's foamy and it's really consumer friendly. Cacao is an espresso. So you just
Yeah.
have to prepare yourself for that. It's bitter, it's gonna move you more. It's a lot. So if you're brand new to it, I mean, try it, but just manage your expectations. But you can take yourself down more of the frappuccino route, which I've started doing a lot more on social. Like when I started, I was like hardcore. We just do it with water, and I noticed people were like, sounds a bit gross. So now I'm like showing them how to make it with milk and how to use different nut milks and
Yeah.
creams and just to make it more palatable to them, add sugar. Because people, again, now they message me when I send samples out. They're like, can I drink sugar? And they think it's this crime to put sugar in. I'm like,
Yeah.
the most important thing is it's plant medicine. Get it into your system. If you need to put some sweetener in it, put it in. Like, who cares? If you need to put milk in, put it in. If you have dairy and you want to use proper milk, go for it. If you want to use, I don't care. Just make it palatable. So that's what I would say. Try it on its own just to see, because you might surprise yourself because it might be to your palate. But don't be surprised if it's really bitter. Don't freak out and say, I'm never having it again because it's bitter. Just treat it like you would a coffee or something else and just adapt the recipe a little bit to yourself.
Yeah, I saw like one of your posts and it was like this blue liquid, and then like cacao, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so pretty." I just loved the creativity with that. And I was
Oh,
like, it inspired me. I was like, "What could I do like that?"
yeah, and that's the thing that I try and do a lot of, because again, that's the first thing I was met with. People either saying it's too bitter or it's too boring. And I'm like,
Yeah.
is it or are you boring? Let's decide. You can do stuff to it. So now I like to just, and honestly, a lot of the stuff I do, like on TikTok, it's literally me. I've woken up, I'm like, what am I going to do with this cacao today? And I literally start, I'll put the camera on and just start throwing things in. I'm like, let's, some days it's like, yes, other days it's kind of like, this is gross. We're not doing that. So when it's a yes day, then I'll post it. But you just have to get
Okay.
playful about the whole thing.
I remember when I first started drinking cacao. Actually, before I started drinking cacao, I only liked milk chocolate because dark chocolate was just too intense for me. And growing up, I was a vanilla person, but it took me a little bit of time to drink cacao and acquire the taste. But honestly, like after those couple times, like I don't like milk chocolate anymore.
Yeah.
Like I need the darker.
Yeah.
It's just milk chocolate's just like too sweet and too light.
Yeah.
So I think
Absolutely.
it's also an acquired taste.
Yeah, and you do build into it. I know I'm a big chocoholic, but since I started having cacao, my interest in chocolate has disappeared. And other people have said that too. Like, oh, I'm not really having much chocolate anymore. I'm like, because nutrient wise, when you want chocolate, a lot of the reason is you're low in magnesium. So once you start having like this huge dose from the cacao, the chocolate, the cravings, they tend to just go away. Yeah, it does. I was going to ask you though, your cacao, where is it from? As in what
Cacao.
country? Because you asked me about what country I like cacao from. I was interested about which one.
So right now I'm drinking um this cacao is from Mexico,
Mexico. Cool.
and the owner of this company, her name is Catherine Rogers. She lives in San Diego. She has a cacao cafe called Maya Moon Collective, and she sources her cacao from Mexico, Ecuador, and Peru.
Okay, cool.
And I mean, like, this is amazing. She also, what does she put in this? She puts, so there's the cacao paste. She puts cane sugar, cinnamon, seed powder, chili powder.
So it's a little spicy.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
So that is what I'm currently drinking.
Cool. I'm always intrigued when people are like, and I'm such a cacao snob now. So people are like, oh yeah, I've had my cacao, and I'm like, yeah, but is it paste or is it just powder? Because a lot of people just have cocoa powder. They're like, I'm drinking cacao. Like, you are not. I'm
Oh my
so
gosh,
mean.
wait. Something that happened. So, like, when I moved to San Diego, that's when I discovered cacao. And then I'm actually from Philadelphia. So, when I would go home and talk to my friends, I'd be like, yeah, like cacao, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what? Cacao? And they would like laugh at me, like, you mean chocolate? And I'm like, no, cacao.
Yeah, I people don't get it. The amount of times I spend, yeah, the amount of time I spend saying not chocolate, it's not chocolate, and then a friend will voice note me. So I was having some of your chocolate, and I'm like, how many times I said it's not chocolate? So now I've resigned, and now I'm like, it's pure chocolate, and I'm trying to find the middle ground to just meet people where they're at again.
What's your current vision for your business?
The only vision I have for my business is that it's much more. It's not about cacao, and that's why I called it Eight Within. And I remember
Hmm.
sitting down with the designer to start doing my packaging. He's like, 8 within. It doesn't say anything about cacao. And I was like, it's not a cacao business. For me, I called it a soul development business. And I was like, right now, cacao is the vessel that I'm using to reach people. It's so I call it eight within because I'm talking about the eight stands for infinity. So infinite wisdom within you. And it came to me when I was meditating. The answer again is this synchronicities things I talked about. I was like, I don't know what to call this company. Shut up and go do your meditation. So off I went, doing my meditation, and I just saw an infinity sign. And then the words like within just kept coming up. And I was like, eight within. And literally, and I was like, okay, let's do it. So I went to GoDaddy. Oh, 8within.com is free. I went to Instagram. It's like 8within is free. TikTok. I was like, okay, no one anyway has claimed this name. Let's do it. But back to the question. So I think like we all have a lot of wisdom within us, and we all know what we need to know, and we all know what we're here for. We've just gotten like confused along the way. But if you sit quietly, it comes to the surface. So for me right now, cacao is the tool that I'm using to help people sit quietly and help things come to the surface. But I would love to do it in deeper ways. What does that look like? I don't know. It's what I said about like having things done through me. I'm ready to just be like I end up pulled and being like, oh, I'm doing cacao now. I'm happy to be pulled and being like, oh, I'm writing a book now, or oh, I'm doing tours in the Amazon now. I don't know. So I don't know what it looks like, but it's not just about cacao, because cacao isn't just cacao. As I said, it's about you
Yeah.
and like meeting yourself.
What do you think the meaning of life is?
I don't think there's a big meaning. Here's my analogy. Everyone says this, but I'm going to say it like I'm the first one who's thought of it. I subscribe to the theory that we're all part of the universe, like we're all one, as in our spirits or souls are all one, and we're all kicking about in the universe doing nothing. So every so often, us says, let's try something new. And like us has an offshoot, which is you or me, and it goes and it says, oh, I want to do this on Earth and be a human. So off it goes to have this experience. And I liken it to going to a fairground. And being alive is like being in a fairground. And you go to a fair to have fun, like to see stuff, to taste stuff, to enjoy the rides. Like you can go and you can moan and you can scream on the rides and you'd be like, I don't like the queues and I don't like the rain and I don't like the candy floss, and you can have a nasty time. Or you can get on the rides and get scared and do you know what I mean? And just try everything, you just experience everything, and then you go home. And that was it. There's no deep meaning.
Yeah.
It's just something to do and to embrace and to enjoy or not enjoy, because you can always come back and do it again. Like if you had a horrible time, you fell off the merry-go-round, whatever, you can, pick yourself up tomorrow, come back and do it again. That's how I see life. I don't think it's a big drama. Yeah. But I do think when you say I'm going to go to Earth, you go with something you want to achieve. It's like, I want to go to that fairground and I didn't go on the big wheel last time. I really want to do that this time. And that's your mission. And you may make it, you may screw up. If you screw up, you come back and you do it again until you get to do what you want to do.
I love that. Thank you.
It's very childish and very silly, but that's the way my brain has made sense of it after all these years.
It can be such a big question on people's mind, especially with like life purpose. Like, why am I here? What did I come here to do? And I'm still like questioning if there like was like, is there like a big, what is it called? Attraction? Wait, whatever. Is there like a big roller coaster that I can do? Or did I just like come here to decide what I want to do while I'm here?
But maybe you did. Because sometimes you go to the fair with no intention. You're just like, I need a day out.
Yeah.
And so you go. You haven't plotted like the rides you're going to go on. You just go, and whatever happens, happens. And it's not a big deal either way. I think we make a huge deal out of it for no reason. I may be wrong though. I'll tell you when I die. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? We're not meant to know.
Exactly.
That's like the best part, is we're just here pondering.
Exactly. And we spend so much time. When I was in the teacher training last year, we were all sat down philosophizing the meaning of life. And I was kind of like, if we're meant to be living, don't you think it's weird that instead of like living and enjoying life, we're all sitting here really serious, like trying to figure out what we're meant to be doing instead of doing it? And I literally saw the teacher's face just being like, like when someone like has like a brain shudder. She was literally like, you're ruining my plan, stop talking. But it was just the moment where she was just like, and I was kind of like, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be, what's the word, like cause problems. I just thought for a minute, like, can you imagine if we're supposed to be living life and we've got people like going on these because it was a month, like a month in the jungle. Like you just go and you just sit down and you just philosophize and you don't live. You just talk about life and the point of life. I'm like, I feel like we probably should be living it, not chatting about it. But that's just me.
Were you
Weird.
there for a whole month?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was cool, but it was full on. And that's what I mean. Like, when you're just doing like philosophy all day, every day, and asanas and philosophy and asanas and philosophy, and you're like, I just want to go out and just relax for a day. Can we stop? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely get like that where um actually that happened to me the other day. I was listening to I went to this conscious life expo, this expo, and it was a spirituality expo, and there was this keynote speaker, and I was listening to him talk, and like I got like really antsy. Like I just want to go live my life. Like I just want to go like do the things and meditate and just act on the things instead of like talking and talking and talking about it and like being like, well, like this is what I believe and this is what and I'm like getting to this point of like there's some things that we're never gonna know. Like and I just don't feel like talking about them anymore. Cause
Yeah.
like I've had so many different beliefs and I've come in and out of them so many different times and I'm just like, you know what? I don't know. I'm just gonna go act on my passion, act on my heart, do this podcast, and like I don't need to spend so much time philosophizing.
Yeah.
Even though like we kind of are philosophizing
We,
as we talk.
we are. But it's an hour and we're doing it in a light way, so all is good. I have no qualms about it. I think it's when we get too serious, or at least I'll speak for myself,
Yeah.
and you just start chasing answers and you don't live. You just spend your whole life chasing answers. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like if you start living, the answers kind of show up on their own.
They really
You
do.
have to, do you know what I mean? It's like it's what they say about experience. Like knowledge you can get out of a book, but you have to experience something to be wise, and you're not going to do that just sitting there.
When I forget what we were talking about like why did I come here to decide to get on the big ride
Yeah,
or whatever. And like as soon as we finished talking about that, what came to me was that I'm just here to follow my heart's desire, like to learn how to just follow my heart.
yeah, so true. It's so true though. And I said this before I came in. As I was telling you earlier, I was talking to someone who's like lost in life and for some reason thinks I can help her. And I was like, I'm lost. I don't know what you're talking about. But that's what I said. She's like, what do I do next? And I'm like, just do what makes you happy. Like literally, like each step, just make it like a step of happiness instead of anything else. I don't think you can go wrong when you do that. I
Hmm.
really don't. But maybe I'm naive. I don't know.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Not that you're naive, but that I don't think you
You're
can
like
go.
both.
Maybe I'm naive also.
No,
I
I
think the
would
best
rather.
thing we can do for others is live by example.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because
I'm
there's
doing
some
my
people
best.
that. So what was that?
So I'm doing my best.
Yeah, it's true. Because when you're in a good place and when you're doing what you're doing authentically, people they see that and they show up and because they're like, "What are you doing? I want some of that." Versus
Yeah.
when you're telling them this is what they should do, and you're looking miserable. It's like I don't trust the words you're saying. I don't want what you're drinking because it's not good. So yeah, do it. I do that with people. Like there's some people that I just look like they're living the life. I'm like, tell me more. What are you doing? Like, how is this working out for you? And like trot off and try and emulate it in whatever way like works for me. So definitely do you.
Wait, that just reminded me of one of my favorite. She teaches the energetics of money and pretty much like the law of attraction with specifically with money and abundance. And she always says how like there's gonna be people who give you advice from like the people who live mediocre, the people who give you advice that live a mediocre life. Like, do you really want to live a mediocre life?
Yeah. Who is the person? The law of attraction person.
Her name is Amanda Francis.
Oh no, I've not heard of her. I'll have
And
to look her up.
I've been following her for about 3 years now. And like, I love her so much because everything she says just resonates as truth and wisdom. And
Yeah.
it's like the ultimate truth of like, we're not constricted and restricted by our current beliefs. And she really practices her teachings. Like, she really embodies it and lives it fully. And like, what does she have on her Instagram? It's like unrealistic goal achiever.
I've just found her now. Repetitive and unrealistic goal achiever.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll have to check her out. I've never heard of her before. Weird.
I'm so grateful for these people who just like show up and they're just like, no, like I'm gonna live differently. Like I'm
It's
not gonna live
true.
by the norm.
I would say that's the best part of having social. You know what? Everyone always hates on social media. Oh my God, like the world is going to ruin because of social media. The one thing I think is really good for it is having access to people like this that otherwise it's like,
Yeah.
where would you meet these people that show you what you can do? Like you only know the people around you. And if there's no social media, you literally think, well, that person's a chef and that person's a butler and that person's a teacher. So those are my options. Pick one. But then you
Yeah.
start seeing all these people and you're like, okay, I can do a lot more. It's very cool.
If you could send one message to every person in this world, what would that message be?
I told her we all just need to chill out more and we'll realize that everything's fine. You can't do it wrong. That was kind of the summary. It's like we all just need to relax. Relax. All is well.
Yeah.
That's it. That is it. All is well. Because it is. Even when it's not. It is.
Yeah.
Which sounds very cryptic. It's not meant to be. I know what I mean. You need that contrast. That's the best thing someone said to me, that you can't know what happiness is unless you know what sadness is. You
Mhm.
can't know what sweet is unless you know what salty is. So you need that contrast to appreciate what's going on. So you just have to know that all is well. And even when it's a bit crap, it's like when it rains and it stops. It doesn't rain forever. You just have to relax and enjoy it when it rains. What would your message be?
So it's funny because when I ask other people, like I wrote a bunch of questions for you to like ask you questions, and then I'm always like, you know what? If someone was asking me these questions, I don't know if I could answer all of them.
Surprise!
So I do try to like think of like what would my response be, and this question changes like all the time. Like I feel like when I'm in the moment, it's like, okay, what would my message to everyone be right now? And it is to follow your heart, to follow the fuck yeses in life, and to just do it one step at a time, and to like take it practically and logically and like in this moment. Because I think that we can get so far ahead in like the future of like, well, like where do I want to be in a month? But it's like, what can I do right now to get me to where I want to be? Which may be like really just focusing on your heart.
Stay in the present. And that's my thing right now, being present. This is literally, for this whole week, it's been going so long. It's what we said about living versus talking. So if I talk about, hey, yeah, it's good to be present, I never do it. But this week I've been really like, I've been doing a lot with Joe Dispenza and I'm like his
Oh,
meditations and I'm catching myself. I'm literally just catching my brain all day and I'm having to be like, literally like pulling my thoughts like back to the present. Ooh, I'm like, ugh, pull it back. It's so hard. It's so
yeah.
hard.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about my future because like I'm like having this vision with perspective switch, and it's like always future oriented, and then I'm always like trying to figure out how things are going to unfold or happen. But there's just so much that happens on a day-to-day basis that I could have never expected. So like I try to just be present because like I don't know what's going to happen in a week. Like I don't know who I'm going to meet. I don't know how they're going to change my life. And so like I can get like stressed or worried about like how is this all going to work out? So that's why I think for me it's so important to remember to be present, to just enjoy
Yeah,
this moment and allow it to unfold.
it's true. And have you ever had, I'm sure you have, but have you ever had, you've got all these plans coming and then a crisis happens or like you're ill. And when like everything, you drop everything. I don't know if you've had that. Like those moments always make me, they just, like that's a real present moment. I don't know if you know what I mean. Like you're planning something. You might be going on holiday or vacation, as you guys say. You might be planning your launch. You might have a podcast coming up and you break your leg and you just go to the hospital, like literally, and there's nothing else as important. Or a family member calls you when something's happened, you're like, I'm coming there now, and you just drop everything.
Yeah.
And that for me is the ultimate. All the stuff that we think is so important that we're
Yeah.
planning and think it's so ridiculous, and it's just those things that when you have to, your brain's like stupid, 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 and suddenly there's nothing. It's just like you as a human, that's what's important, and whoever
Yeah.
you love, are they okay? Like that's it. Nothing else is
Yeah.
important, and that is, yeah, that's for me is the ultimate kind of present moment because it's literally every second counts in those moments. It's crazy, but yeah,
So I'm a big like I love being productive and I love doing things and getting things done, and like what you just said reminds me, like makes me feel like like sometimes we don't need to get everything done.
No.
Like it's okay. Like if something does happen and I have to go to the hospital, it's like my to-do list can wait.
Yeah.
But like when nothing happens, it's like, oh my god, this, like I go to sleep and I'm like, I can't believe I didn't get everything done today. Like how could I do that?
Yeah, because we create our own drama. Again, that's why I love that Ram Dass thing about life is happening and you're watching it back. So now I don't get mad at myself if I don't do stuff. I'm just like, this is all you were meant to do today. Literally, nothing is what you did. That's all you were meant to do. And it's fine. Go to sleep. And that just, I sleep like a baby because there's no guilt.
uh
That's what I remember. Some days it's just spiraling of madness. I'm like, I did nothing. And But yes.
Thank you so much. And how can everyone find you?
So I am 8within, as I said. No one has it anywhere. So 8within.com is the website, and 8within is my handle on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook allegedly, even though I don't do anything on Facebook, but I will start doing stuff on Facebook soon. So yeah, and hopefully launching probably October now. Um, so watch this space.
Yay. Thank you so much.
No problem.